Welcome everyone to CMTC's webinar series. My name is Gabby Richard Harrington, happen to be the president of New England ISTE, and I'm happy to be moderating this webinar today. A bit of housekeeping, the sessions are recorded, the video will be posted on the CMTC 19 YouTube channel, and it can be shared with colleagues and friends. We'd like you to do that actually. And if you need a certificate of participation, you can write directly an email to Kimra, KYMRA @nhsaa.org. Please post questions in the chat. We will feed them to the presenters. And the presenters today are Gary Rubin and Mark Schwartz from Texthelp. Today is March 5th, 2020. And take it away, Texthelp.
Thank you, Gabby.
Thanks, Gabby. I have to share my screen. Gabby, I need you to not share your screen. That work? Yes.
There you go.
Okay, can everybody see my RIQ Writing Assessment Made Easy screen?
Yep. Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. This is RIQ. It is Texthelp's newest writing assessment tool. I'll introduce Gary, but Gary can introduce himself. Gary, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Mark. Do appreciate it. So hopefully I was able to meet many of you at CMTC this year. And if I was not, I am Gary Rubin, and I am the Territory Director for New England with Texthelp. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about what you see today. And I'd love to have you follow us or follow me on Twitter as well, so I can exchange ideas and lots of good learning information with you there.
Great, thanks, Gary. I'm Mark. I was also lucky enough to meet many of you at CMTC this year. That was a lot of fun for me. Same thing, any feedback at all, please make sure you send it in, tweet it. We do check the Twitter accounts. I certainly check mine. And we take that feedback really seriously. So, excuse me, any feedback that we do get, we take right to the developers, and that's how we shape the future of our products, is based off the feedback that we get from teachers. So a little bit about what I'll cover today, and we have sort of a abbreviated period of time. First, I'm going to cover some of the philosophies that guided the creation of RIQ, and then we'll just take a look at what's there now, and then a little bit of the metrics that we have, and then what's coming next. So why RIQ? A couple years ago, we sort of surveyed the landscape of student writing and saw some inefficiencies. We noticed, and this is not a surprise to anybody that teaches writing, that the nation's report card reports that students, especially in grade 8 and 12, are not proficient in writing. Again, not a surprise. And a lot of those kids that score low in writing don't say that writing is one of their favorite activities. So taking those two pieces of information, we sort of set out to see what we could do about that. And the first thing we did was looked at it from a teacher perspective. And from a teacher's perspective, scoring writing is really hard. It takes a long time. I know when I was teaching, I used to bring home, tote bags full of essays every weekend. And that's not fun, and it takes a long time, and it takes away from your personal life and all sorts of stuff like that. So we wanted to make that piece of it easier. It's also really subjective, and not just because we have favorite students, even if we don't want to admit that we have favorite students, but because it takes such a long time, it just becomes a thing where some of the essays you look at the end of the day don't get the same attention that the essays at the beginning of the day did. That's part of what we wanted to take out of this. Also, you get tired, you miss some things. Computers aren't going to miss things, so we wanted to take advantage of the technology there. We wanted to give you the ability to track progress. I know as an English teacher and history teacher, these were not things that we were putting into spreadsheets and tracking and making line graphs and all sorts of stuff. So we wanted to make that easier for you also. We're going to look at some data. This is sort of an example of the data we're going to look at. We wanted to see how we could objectively measure your writing, not just by pulling out some of the subjectivity the other way, but also looking at it objectively. And the big benefit for students is similar to video games. Video games are really popular with students because they get immediate feedback. So they enter a fight, they face a villain, they lose, 3 minutes later, they're trying again, and they know what they did wrong the first time. With writing, we ask kids to wait 2 or 3 weeks, and that saps their motivation. So by looking at the idea of video games and realizing that immediate feedback is really important, we really set out to help improve that feedback loop. From a teacher perspective, again, that faster feedback, the ability to track progress, the precision. We also wanted to make it easier for teachers that have to assign writing across the curriculum, make it easier for them to grade. So the math teachers, the science teachers, other STEM teachers that aren't really used to assigning grading and aren't used to grading spelling, punctuation, grammar, all that kind of stuff. Excuse me, we wanted to make it easier for them. So from there, let's just jump into an actual demo. So you may recognize some of this writing. It is not my original writing, although I will say there are a lot more errors than the original. WriteQ is right over here in the sidebar. So when I open up the sidebar, you can see accuracy, spelling, grammar, punctuation, word count, a vocabulary maturity measure, and time on task are automatically done. All done right away for us. I don't have to really go through and make any marks here. If there is anything that I want to change, so if I thought there shouldn't be a comma after fences, I can just click it and then I can add a punctuation or a grammar error, however I want to do that. The vocabulary measure is really a measure of age of acquisition. So it measures sort of the average age of the readability, basically, of the document. What you're going to find is most of the vocabulary age comes out to between 9 and 12 years. That's because we learn most of our language by the time we're 12. Most adults can know about, well, somewhere in between 50 and 65,000 words, depending on which research you want to believe. And we learn about 40,000 of those words by the time we're 12. So that's going to generally be between 9 and 12. Time on task is going to measure the time spent writing or editing a document. So if a student has a document open, they run around school, they go to the bathroom, they come back, they write another sentence. All the time that they were away does not count for time on task. So it really gives you a nice measure of engagement with the document. So once you check over all this, add whatever errors you need to add. You can select a rubric. We have built-in rubrics. We also have custom rubrics available, so you can make your own, share out rubrics through your school or district. I'm going to select narrative and then go to the rubric. And as a former teacher, I love this part. This part used to take me forever. Handwriting a rubric took me so much time. So here I've got 4 areas of focus and 4 levels of criteria for each level. Focus for this one, and if I want to see what any of these things are, I just click the plus to expand it out. For our purposes, I'm just going to kind of go through this quickly. So for organization, I'll say approaching grade level. Maybe look at what that is. Narrative techniques, it is J.K. Rowling. It was a pretty good story. I'll say above grade level. And then for language, we'll say not as good. We'll say approaching grade level. And then we'll continue on. I love that that's how fast it takes me to go through a rubric, because rubrics are not fun to do by hand. So from here, I can enter some feedback. Great story, JK. I can look at the WriteQ score. So the WriteQ score is a combination of 4 things. It's a metric that we've come up with to help you objectively look at writing. It's a barometer of your student writing. It takes into account how much they wrote, the word count, how accurate it is, that accuracy percentage we looked at, the vocabulary maturity, and how much time it took them. The WriteQ score is on a 0 to 400 scale. This one is really low for 2 reasons. First of all, there's a lot of errors in here, and only 4 paragraphs is a lot of errors. The other thing is, this is a document I play with a lot. So the time on task is now over 2 hours for only 4 kind of short paragraphs. So that's going to bring the overall WriteQ score down. The WriteQ score by itself doesn't really give you a lot of information, but if you look at it over time and you monitor student progress over time, and you start to see it going up, that's a really good sign. If it's not going up or it's going down, those trends, that trend data is really what you want to look at. And you want to make sure that this is going up. If it's not, you can look at why it's not. Is it time on task? Is it vocabulary? Are they not writing enough? What is it that's keeping that RIQ score down? So that's where the RIQ score comes from. Down here, I get a nice visualization of the rubrics. Everything looks good. I'm going to save that score. Document's been scored, and I'm now going to insert it into the document. And the next time the student opens the doc, this takes a minute here, but the next time they open the doc, they will get that really nice feedback image. So that's all of the stuff that we looked at before. When I go over to my dashboard, that's where I can really track the progress. So if I look, let me go back to the Classrooms page here. If you use Google Classroom, you can import your Google classes. It'll populate your whole student list. You get average metrics, all those metrics we looked at before on the outside by class. So if you have multiple sections of the same class, you can really compare their writing. It's really, really helpful. I can go into View Class, see average metrics for all of the students in the class. And then when I go into their individual page, this is where I can really track their progress. I can look at their average RIQ and rubric scores for the year. I can see metrics. Down here, I have a history of score docs, and these are all hyperlinks that get me right back to those documents. I can see the RIQ score, the word count, all those metrics. Up here is the progress monitoring chart, and that's really where the power of RIQ is, especially with the RIQ score and the vocabulary age. So in here, not only can I track progress, but I can measure it against national norms. So we have national norms that we've created for both the RIQ score and the vocabulary age. And I think it's really important to be able to do that. Again, not as a grade replacement, just as a barometer for you to understand where your student writing is and for your students to understand where their writing is, both against themselves in terms of tracking progress and against those national norms. That's really important.
Mark, we have a question. So
Sure.
in the chart that you're showing us now, is that multiple submissions of the same document, or is it this student's multiple different pieces of writing?
So the 3 documents you see at the bottom here, that's the 3 data points up top. Let me shut the norms off. So the 3 data points there are the 3
different
here.
pieces. And if a student submits the same piece of writing that you've already graded once, you can grade it a second time?
Yep, so if I go back over to this document, I can literally just hit that rescore button and that'll reset everything. And I can just rescore the document. In the dashboard, in the progress monitoring chart, I believe you'll only see the most recent version of that document. If you change the title and you just put like a 1 next to it, you'll be able to see multiples of the same document. But if it's the exact same one, it'll just write over that score if you rescore.
But the graphic that you put inside the student's document stays there, and then a second one would get added?
So initially, yes. That was changed at some point. I'm not sure when. So the new image will write over the current image, but the old image will be in the revision history. So all you have to do is go into the revision history and just go back to the previous version.
And another question perhaps is for Gary. Has Texthelp signed the data privacy agreement with New Hampshire and or the educational co-op, the TEC from Massachusetts?
Actually, yes. I posted in the group chat, Gabby. We've been working with Steve Smith from Cambridge. He's the CTO there for quite a long time, actually. I initially began with working with Steve and that group in Massachusetts several years back. And with the success of what they've done there and no need to quote unquote reinvent the wheel, New Hampshire's pretty much adopted that framework. And I've actually been seeing a lot more agreements coming in from customers and prospective new customers from New Hampshire asking us to sign their individual agreements. So anyone who'd like to use our tools that has not and is in need of having us to sign individual agreements for their districts, they can be sent directly to me at garyr@texthelp.com. I will pass those along internally for review, signature, and then counter signature to be returned back to us to execute those for anyone who needs them.
We also meet all the national and international student data privacy agreements, so COPA, FERPA, and the GRDP in the UK.
Thanks.
Yep. Questions? Or just let me jump back in here. So the other part of the dashboard I want to show everybody is where you can make rubrics. If you've taught English or history or almost anything else, you've seen a rubric at some point. This is how we create them, is right in our rubric builder. Really easy. Once you create a rubric, you can save it, and it'll go into your rubric list here. You can share it. So if you have district rubrics, or you teach, say there's multiple teachers of the same subject in a grade, you don't all have to recreate the wheel. You can just create a rubric and share it, and then your shared rubrics will come out in here. Yesterday, I shared with Gary one from Massachusetts. So if you teach 10th grade ELA in Massachusetts, email me or Gary. We have your MCAS rubrics ready to go. One other thing I want to show you, I know we're sort of short on time here. The student experience in RIQ is really important. So based on a little bit of gamification, based on a little bit of nudge psychology, if you're not familiar with nudge, you can look up Richard Thaler and nudge psychology. You want a Nobel Prize for it, it's pretty important. It's the idea that we can nudge people into making better decisions and doing things better in the long term. It's what Fitbits are based on. The idea that if we give you a little badge, or we give you a reward for getting to 10,000 steps, you're more likely to do it. And it's true, we are more likely to do it. So we've based the student experience in RIQ on a little bit of nudge psychology, a little bit of gamification, and something called writing bursts. Writing bursts are a measure of writing fluency. There are lots of measures of reading fluency out there that people have sort of agreed upon, but not a lot for writing fluency. There's really no agreed upon measure for that. Writing bursts is one measure, and it measures the transcription from getting an idea in your head to getting it on paper. We know that that's the most important thing in writing, is getting kids to just do that more often. The research on pedagogy is pretty clear that teaching grammar, spelling, punctuation, even though we did it for a really long time, it actually doesn't make a lot of sense. We don't need to do it. What we need to do is get kids to write more. So by measuring the amount of writing they do between 2-second pauses, we can actually give them goals that will get them to write more. So as I start to write, I can't talk at the same time. The RIQ burst meter go up. When I pause for 2 seconds, it's going to reset. And then I can start typing in.
Does this work with voice typing? Will this?
It doesn't work with voice typing. It's a really good question. The research is based on writing. It's not based on speaking. Speaking's a different skill. It's certainly an important skill. I'm not trying to take anything away from it, but it's a different skill. We are working on some ways to measure the speech to text, Gabby. It's a really good question. We're working on some ways that we can measure that in a similar sort of way. It'll be a similar but sort of different experience. One of the things that we can capture are academic keywords. There's a little bit of machine learning we've done with that to get RIQ to identify academic words. And that's a thing that we'll be able to do with, for example, that's one thing we'll be able to do with speech to text is, what sort of academic words are you using? Spelling, we can get into a little bit, not spelling, but grammar and punctuation, we get into that a little bit. So it's an important skill, it's just a different one.
So a student that can't physically type, if you used voice typing right now, would it accurately measure their time on writing? Even if
yes, it would measure measure their time on task accurately. It wouldn't measure the writing bursts.
Got it. Okay.
So in here, I just want to show everybody, you can track your bursts for the day, the week, the month, and the year. You can look at academic keywords and subject areas, which I don't have any from what I've typed today. Also a word cloud based on those keywords also. So you'll be able to see which of those academic keywords you're using most often. And then as part of that nudge bit I was talking about, we have badges and achievements for everybody. So these aren't filled in. But what I can do is I can generate some dummy data. This is a beta version that I'm using. It's not the actual live version, so that I could show you guys this. So I can show you what a week's worth of data, a month's worth of data might look like, and the badges. So these are the badges you can get for bursts, for science, math, English words, and then bookshelves for the total number of words. Again, what we're trying to do is get kids to write more. It's the only thing that will really make their writing better. So you'll get badges similar to this. These aren't quite final, but they're just about there. So with that,
question
go ahead.
from the audience is if multiple students are in this document working, what does it measure? Can it measure multiple?
So what it'll do is it goes by the Google listed author of the document.
Author.
So
Okay.
even if multiple students are in it, only one of them is going to be listed as the author.
Okay, excellent.
Yep. Other questions?
Other questions? Thanks for posting that, Richard Thaler. I see he just won the
He won the
Nobel
Nobel Prize
Prize.
a couple of years ago. Yes, for that. That nudge psychology is really important. It's actually what drives retirement funding. Interestingly enough, so the idea that we opt everybody into putting money into your retirement, and if you don't want to, you have to opt out of it. That's actually nudge psychology. We just, by making it easier to do the right thing, we tend to do the right thing.
Okay. Well, with that, I would love to say that it looks like this tool is being improved all the time.
Yes.
We want to thank Gary and Mark for sharing the newest of Texthelp's products. We want to thank CMTC and remind you that this webinar is being posted in the CMTC 19 YouTube channel. Watch for future emails from CMTC about their next webinars. And this will be archived probably in the next day or so. Again, if you need a certificate, Kimra's email, kmyra@nhsaa.org. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gabby.
Stop the recording.
Thanks so much, everybody. That was excellent.
Great.
Thank you, Cynthia. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
Have a great
very
week,
much.
everyone.
You
Thanks,
too. Bye, everyone.